and it's the only way.
Oh, shit. They do call America the Great Satan. This is episode 30, whatever, maybe, I don't know. It's a bunch of episodes of The Great Satan. I am joined for the probably third or fourth time. I don't remember. How many times have you been on the pod? Third. This is third visit from Mr. Zac of Automotive Free Clinic.
Doctor
Zac. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on your academic bona fides. Dr. Zac. Does anybody call you just Dr. Zac?
My mechanic buddies call me Professor like it's my name.
Yeah.
Like they're like, Professor, come here. I need you to fucking tighten this caliper bolt.
Right.
Like,
yeah, dude. It's weird because I know like your academic bona fides, but like again, like I don't feel like we sent you back to brunch. You know what I mean? So I'm like, well, you're not like a real academic because you're not like a hand-wringing lib, you know?
yeah, well, I'm not a real academic because they fucking last job I had, they fired me because I refused to give people grades. So, you know.
Which is weird. Like that is a weird thing to be like, oh yeah, I believe in this school of education, and they're like, you're not allowed to believe in a thing.
Nah.
And then like people get mad when a post gets deleted on Facebook, like that's their First Amendment rights, and you're like, but no, as an educator, you don't have the ability to believe in like an unschooling or like a decolonization view of education, you know?
I guarantee you the students in my politics and nature class learned more in that class than they learned in every other political science class they took combined. Guarantee it. Because for me, education is about learning and not about disciplining students.
Right.
And not about teaching students to follow instructions or repeat shit back to you. It's about like exploring concepts and ideas.
Yeah.
And you know, we came to one book we read. We're like, hey, this book fucking sucks. Like, it's like I picked the book, we read it, and we talked about it, and we're like, this book sucks. You know, like that's the conclusion we came to. That's a fine conclusion to come to, you know. And anyway, that's not the topic, but
I mean, that is a completely legit takeaway from a book. When people are like, oh, did they understand the book? Like, so in education, you go, hey, what is the point of reading a book? Does the person understand and take something away from the book? Oftentimes, the takeaway from a lot of books is this book sucks.
It sucks.
That is fine. I've read Atlas Shrugged.
What the book we read that we thought sucked, and we had it like I don't want to say we sucked. We read Carolyn Merchant's book. Carolyn Merchant was one of my professors at Berkeley. We read her book about the scientific revolution and women. Yeah, and it wasn't necessarily that it sucked, but that it was like 1975 feminism.
Yeah,
and it was sort of appropriate. It was dated.
Yeah,
and it's sort of like arguments that were happening at that time that are not necessarily happening in feminism at this time. And you know, so it wasn't that it sucked, it's that it was just people didn't think it was relevant to, you know, the kind of questions that they were interested in.
Yeah, big time. So you're probably talking about The Death of Nature?
Death of Nature.
Yeah. Women ecology.
And Carolyn Merchant is a lion. Like she's a lion. She's a great thinker, and I don't want to take anything away from her. But it was, you know, people were like, this is not really relevant to the things that I'm thinking about, you know?
Right. It's also like, I want to say it was super focused on gender politics in this like really giant thing that she's talking about. She's using this framework that's really limited, right? So instead of talking about it like, you know, in more modern or intersectional or class-based or whatever you want to call it, like whatever you want to call Marxism, right, is like she's talking about it as this like gender thing instead of this like much broader concept. So
well, let me talk about the class.
What?
let me talk about the class a minute. The class it was called The Politics of Nature. I did Cronin's book about Chicago, which was Marxist. And then I did Carolyn Merchant's book, which was about feminism. I did Carolyn Finney's book, who was my mentor, about race and nature. I did a book on international development and nature. And then we did Octavia Butler's Dawn.
Hell yes.
And so it was like really intersectional. It was like all the oppressions and nature. Like, yeah. And so like I was cool with I'm cool with Carolyn Merchant arguing about feminism and just feminism. Like, that's fine. Like, you don't have to argue every single oppression. Like, argue about yourself and the things that you know.
Right.
Like, Ta-Nehisi Coates argues about race. Cool. Argue about race. That's your contribution to the to society.
Yeah.
Me, I'm going to argue about class because I'm working class and that's my experiences. I have written about race before, but it's weird to write for a fucking redneck to write about race. Like, it's not, I'm writing about something that I don't have personal experience with.
Right.
I do have personal experience with being a working class guy, so I'm going to write about that. And you want to call that class reductionism? I mean,
yeah,
why is class
around like a slur so fucking much when it's like, that is what intersectionality should be, is like, it is class reductionism applied to these other oppressive forms. Like, that's what intersectionality is class reductionism. Like, it should be like, class reductionism shouldn't be a slur. It should be just like, well, no class reductionist ever is going to be like, racism doesn't exist because only money exists. It's like, no. Look at like the 9 fucking people, right, that are rich, right? And none of them are black and none of them are women. It's like, yeah, members of the professional managerial class are black and women and trans and all this. Not one real, fucking children on Epstein's plane capitalist is a black woman. Like, that's not what we're, you know what I mean? So like, class reductionism should never be seen as racist. It's like, no, that's the deal. We deal with the head of the, the head of the dragon or whatever of capitalism. Yeah, it is these top fucking 9 child fuckers or whatever, right?
But I mean, Robin DiAngelo writes about race. Nobody accuses her of race reductionism. Ta-Nehisi Coates writes about race. Nobody accuses him of race reductionism, and is like, oh, you need to argue all these other things. Like, why can't there be people in this society that are saying, we need to talk about class? It doesn't mean nothing else matters, but we do need to talk about class because we have no fucking class consciousness in this society at all. Everybody thinks that fucking your class is, the amount of money on your bank account, and it's that simple. And it's like way more complex than that.
Right.
And, I have this argument with my wife, and I'm like, you have a complex analysis of gender because you are a woman. You're not working class, but you are a woman. Why can't I have a complex analysis of my class position based on my experiences? Why does it have to be this simple determination? Do you have a college education? Like, this is like super simplistic,
Right. Yeah, that is another wild one where it's like, so with the, whatever, give people all their student loan money back or whatever. It's like, no, okay, I get the idea that, like, no, if you as a 15-year-old or 16-year-old are like self-aware enough or class aware enough or whatever you want to call it to know that shit ain't for me, right? I don't want that life. I'm not gonna, you know what I mean? Like, I know what the professional managerial class trappings are. I'm not going for that. I just want to fix cars or whatever it is, right? You're not taking on quite as much debt. I mean, granted, machinists have to go to school too. Like, all these other things, they have like private schools that are fucking crazy expensive too. So they're taking on debt. Even med tech and a lot of RNs and all kinds of stuff that didn't go to even state schools. They went to like, Fortis and whatever bullshit. They're just as fucked too. And they're definitely working class and they're definitely in debt. So like, but the arguments I see floated about like forgiving student loan debt is about dividing the classes and saying like you're a worker because you have debt or something, instead of saying like you're a worker because you're a worker. I don't know.
Well, Biden's just paying off his base.
There you go.
It's simple. It's not like it really, it doesn't, it's not necessarily going to divide the classes or anything like that. Like this whole argument, like, well, I fucking didn't go to college and I shouldn't have to, you shouldn't get it. Like, that's just bullshit. Just because somebody gets something free
They're
doesn't
not the
mean
one. Yeah. The other thing is like,
you're not being hurt because somebody gets something.
You didn't go to college and you make 120. You're not the one paying those people's loans off.
Yeah, it's like, that's bullshit. But like the whole political thing behind it is Biden's base is the professional managerial class, and he's paying them off. I guess it's simple. It's a simple political move to like be like, you elected me. Here's some fucking money. Thank you.
Here's
like
something. Yeah. Because the rest of his whole platform is nothing, right? So at least that's something. You know, he's not letting kids out of cages, whatever. It is like a consolation prize thing, and then culturally for 8 years they can all go back to brunch and leave us the fuck alone.
So, I wish they would stay at brunch. You know, just stay there. When you every fucking 4 years you come out and I post something like revolutionary on Facebook, and y'all all get your panties in a wad, and you're like, you're a fucking traitor, blah blah. Where have you been for the past fucking 3.5 years?
Right.
Like, have you seen what I've been doing for the past 3.5 years? Like, I have actually been working. I haven't been at brunch. Like, you have, and now I'm a traitor. It's so annoying. It's like, I'm so glad they've gone back, and I just like,
yeah, the I didn't realize how much of a weight was being lifted, right? Until like, so I think about back to like the Obama years where I'm like, oh yeah, these are the people that just didn't bother me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have to hear the political opinions of wine moms and fucking NPR dads or whatever for another however long, because they're just going to stay at brunch. Like, they're going to shut the fuck up and leave everybody alone. They definitely don't go to comedy shows, you know? And if they do, their blog has 3 followers, right? And they're going to bitch about whatever, right? So no matter what it is I'm doing, these people are going to leave me the fuck alone, and I'm thrilled about it.
Yeah, it's nice. It's like that is the one benefit of Biden getting elected. Like, that is the constant fucking fire hose of horse shit out of Trump's mouth and out of liberals' mouth has like dissipated, and it's like, whew.
Yeah.
Oh, much better.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, yeah, there's like a base to Trump, and there's like this emboldened weird shit, but it's like we never stopped seeing those people. Like, those people have been around. Like, the far right has been the far right in my experience since I was a kid. Like, I remember, you know, Rush Limbaugh was like the #1 syndicated radio show of all time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I was like in diapers when that happened, right? Like, you know, like, I don't remember a time where the far right hasn't been the far right. Granted, they weren't as bold in some social ways, right? Like, they were maybe a little more scared than they are now, and that's not for nothing, right? Like, it is a big deal.
It's like everybody forgot about Timothy McVeigh, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like everybody fucking forgot, like, Timothy McVeigh was like, he's like a far right. He killed fucking, what, hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people. Like, these people have been around for forever.
180 something. I can't remember the death toll on OK City bombing. Wiki is I want to say 180 something. Let's see. Oh, come on. The Wikipedia article tells the whole thing. So oh my God. Holy shit. It destroyed or damaged 324 buildings within a 16-block radius, shattering glass in 258 buildings, destroyed or burned 86 cars, causing $652 million worth of damage. Until the September 11 attacks, it was the deadliest terrorist attack in the history of the United States.
Yep. Right winger. And like I've been in shops before and I've had political
Well, I mean,
conversations.
9/11 also right winger. Like,
Yeah. I've been in shops before and I've had political conversations with people, and there's always the one dude where you're like, really? You
yeah,
believe that? Okay. Well, that's interesting.
yeah. Those people will always be with you. Like that's
Will always be with you. Yep.
I think Jesus said that shit, right? He said something about that, right? The poor, like, the poor means like the poor. It also means the poor in spirit, not the
Yeah.
like work.
Yeah.
Means some people are always going to believe some fucked up shit, and there's nothing we can do about that except address their material concerns, and then maybe they'll come around.
I mean, hell, the fucking liberals believe that Trump was a fucking, Russian agent. I'm like, he is not smart enough to be a Russian agent. Like,
Even in
maybe,
modern
what's his name? Who's the fascist? Stephen Miller. Maybe Stephen Miller was a Russian agent. I could believe that, but Trump is not a Russian agent. He's not that bright.
Bannon, maybe Bannon.
Maybe Bannon, but Trump is a very strange, dumb dude. Like,
Yeah.
and I mean, people are going to talk about his presidency in like 15 years, and they're going to be like, man, that was the weirdest shit that ever fucking happened. They're going to talk about the end of his presidency with COVID and Trump just like saying take hydrochloroquine, and people are just going to be like, that was the strangest time I've ever been through in my entire life. And
they're not going to be wrong. So the president of the United States of America told people to drink bleach.
And people defended him. And people were like, yeah, you should drink bleach. What? Like, or they were like, well, that's not really what he meant. He fucking said it. Like, it's not, it's recorded.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to talk about Trump. Fuck him.
No, I mean, George W. Bush said ridiculous shit all the time, right?
Yeah.
All the time. Like, constantly. For 8 years, he just said the most ridiculous shit you ever heard. People would ask him, like, what are we going to do about the deficit? And he's like, man, when you get on a horse, you fuck a horse sometimes. Listen, they got this new thing. It's buffalo. They got buffalo boneless chicken fingers, and you can finger a buffalo. Listen, sometimes you can finger a buffalo with no bones in it, but you can't bone a horse. And you go, that was the president for 8 fucking years.
Yeah.
Right? And it would have took coronavirus to take that motherfucker down.
But I don't know. The thing about Obama was Obama's charisma is fucking scary. Like,
yeah.
He has a magic about him that is just like, he's like he's probably the most charismatic person I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
I mean, he could just sort of talk and you would just like, yeah, you're right. Like, yeah, I agree with you, Obama. You're like, I totally agree with you. Yeah, we should have killed Gaddafi in Libya. That's the right move. I believe it. And he's doing it again, like with this shit with defund police. Like, you got fucking liberals marching in the street in July saying, yeah, defund the police. Obama comes out and said, nah, we shouldn't say defund the police. And liberals are like, yeah, it's a bad idea. Like,
yeah.
What the fuck? Where did this come from?
Fucking 5 months ago, you were hanging out with us. What the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. Like his power and his ability to change up, his ability to just flip public opinion like instantaneously is.
That
just
was why I saw defund as such a fucking non-starter. Because defund is the centrist position.
Yeah.
Really, the centrist position is abolish, right? And the left position is and execute them, right? Like, that is the left position, is execute slave owners and their overseers, right? Period. That's the left position. That is actually the centrist position too, because that's what Lincoln would have done, right? That's what Castro did. That's the centrist position. The left position is and salt their fields and murder their families, right? That's like the Lenin position is make sure nothing grow, fuck them and everybody that ever knew them, right? So the moving to the right started with defund, right? that gave them an in.
Yeah.
They said, oh, well, now that's as far left as we have to say is crazy. And then they did it. And Obama's the one doing it. He goes, oh, well, that leftist position is crazy. It's like, it's not crazy when you do it to education. It's not crazy when you managerial privatize trash pickup and defund that, right? It's just crazy when we say it about police, which is, I mean, that is a right-wing position, to defund the police. Like, that is a, like, maintaining, capitalist class relations still exist. Systemic racism can still exist. They just can't spend so much fucking money on ammunition, right? That's literally the least.
Oh shit, they don't need anyway. Like, why do you need body armor? Nobody's shooting at you, dude. Like, it's such very rare.
It's such an easy thing to nitpick and go, well, wait, the more we spend, the less racist the cops are because they get to go to non-racism training. And you go, again, I don't even want to have that conversation about how much money it costs to make a cop not be racist. That's a fucked up conversation I don't want to talk about. I would rather say, start the conversation at, are prisons obsolete? Yes. And then stop the system by which we fill them.
I'm gonna tell you something about that anti-racist training. That has become a profitable industry.
Dude.
that has become a very profitable industry.
And let me tell you, yeah, you and I could probably both tell them, not for the chillest of people.
Not for the chillest of people.
Usually some Blackwater people, some, people that are tied into that managerial privatized system where they get to get out of being a cop and start being a private cop and then get to do, they go to like 6 months of community college, read Judith Butler, right? And they're like, all right, let me tell you guys about, But it's still, the goal of anti-racist training for cops is still the same as like, I don't think I've ever talked about this on the pod. Do you know why cops unload their clip into a suspect when they shoot? They don't shoot one round. They shoot the entire clip, right? So legally, they're told if you didn't unload the clip, you weren't that scared. Right? Your fear is
that sounds like some bullshit. That sounds like some bullshit that like is made up. Like it's just like made up shit. Like
it's 100% made up. I've stopped a crime with a gun and I shot the guy in the foot once, right? And I told this cop friend of mine about it because I was like, yo, I stopped a crime with a gun. That never fucking happens in America ever, right? Nobody stops a crime with a gun ever. Right? It doesn't happen. Cops don't do that very often. And he's like, you fucked up because there's a dude out there that has a opposing story perhaps to yours. He could lie and now you could go to jail forever for shooting a guy, right? And I'm like, well, wait, what? He's like, even if you decided that after that first shot in the foot he was fine and everything was cool, you needed to unload your weapon into that person until he stopped moving. That's the move, right? So that's what their training is. Not here's how you protect yourself from bodily harm and go back to see your wife and kids and all this, right? The training is, here is how you protect yourself against bodily harm and then also don't go to jail for killing, for unlawfully using your weapon when someone testifies against you, right? So they're training.
But why stop there?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't
shoot
matter.
all the bystanders.
Yeah. Seriously, that was the other part of that, which is they have to see you unload your weapon into the person, and then you just walk. You don't test. You don't. Then you shut your fucking mouth and don't talk for the rest of the night. That's the other part. The end of that is you shut your fucking mouth because no matter what you say, it can be not good. Like there's no cool thing you're going to say after that where you're like, I was definitely scared he had a gun. And then you go, I was definitely scared. I thought he had a gun. I was definitely scared. Maybe he'd heard of guns, right? Like nothing you can say is going to look good for you in court. So they train you very carefully. Unload the weapon and shut the fuck up, right? Those are your two things you have to do is unload the weapon and shut the fuck up. So I don't care how anti-racist your training is. I don't care if you've never said a slur in your entire life, right? When that's the training you get in the first week of basic, right? Like in your first week before you become a cop is shoot first, ask questions later. And all those questions, by the way, are how do I not go to jail, right? Self-protection. The thing that's the problem isn't the spending, right? It's the fact that you are put in positions where you have to just shoot people for no reason in the first place. Yeah. And I think worst case scenario, like
I mean,
paints these like worst case scenarios of like private cops running the streets. It's like, if you're a private citizen doing what a cop does, you're going to shoot a lot less black people. Like a way fewer number of people are going to die at the hands of even the most brutally fucked up private police system, right? Because they're private. I mean, when I say private, I don't mean like whatever. I mean, if you're defending individuals, right, your job is to protect people and, you know, or maybe their property, right? So depending on how rich the person is, if they have property, you're protecting that too. You're not going to be just like blowing people's fucking heads off when they walk next to your building, right? It's not going to happen nearly as often. I don't know.
Well,
and we find that
what I've been saying is that, like, you know, the strategy, the anti-racist movement strategy has been to get representation at the table.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
The table is capitalist. Once you have enough representation at that table, then you will be able to pass policies to reform the police. That's the strategy.
Yeah.
Well, once you get at that table, you learn that it's not about policy, it's about power, and that you have to do everything you possibly can do to defend your position and augment your power.
Right.
And so what happens is what's happening now with Obama is the defund the police stuff gets pushed to the side because it's now about gaining power over making reforms that help the working class. That in and of itself is bourgeois democracy. That's how bourgeois democracy works.
Right.
And that's why the working class never gets anything.
Right.
So, you know, if you want to end police violence, the working class is going to have to be in charge. The police globally were invented to bust the heads of the working class. Now, that's not the same story as in the United States and not the same story as in the American South, but globally,
right,
it's capitalists putting thugs out to bust the heads of unruly working class masses.
Right.
And
I would say in America, the police started, you know, to bust the heads of runaway slaves, which is at that time us being not a first world country, us being a imperialized, colonialized, whatever you want to say, both space. The working class here were slaves. That was what. That was the working class, right? I mean, granted, there was like a you know, tertiary sector labor, and there was white working classes and all this, but they were way better off. And the people that were the real colonized people weren't just the indigenous people that were displaced often, but they were the people that were, you know, voted in to be this like colonialized space, right? Or working class. So the police globally were, like you said, invented to bust the heads of workers, whether that be indentured, chattel, or otherwise.
Broadly.
Yeah.
So broadly speaking, the police were invented to bust the heads of workers. When the police emerged in the American South, they were specifically to kill fucking slaves.
Yeah.
But broadly and globally, the police were invented to bust the heads of the working class.
Right.
Whoever they may be.
At the time,
so
even at the time.
My point is if you want to end police brutality, police violence, the working class is going to have to be in charge of a socialist state of some kind.
Absolutely.
It's not gonna. You're never gonna get it through liberal reform. It's never gonna happen.
Never.
You'll get quotas, minority representation in on boards of directors, minority CEOs. Like, you'll get all that,
Right.
but you'll never get the working class free in a capitalist system.
Right. So I won't get into quotas because quotas are usually done. The one of the cool ways cops do quotas usually isn't racial quotas. It's zip code location, right? Which is actually a pretty tight way to do quotas, and it usually works out both ways. But it's one of those things where when you focus on moving the needle instead of actual like systemic reform,
Yeah, exactly.
they can look at it and go, oh man, if we have equal representation of people, like Montgomery is a police force that looks very similar to, demographically similar to the population. And we actually do have like a lower rate of police violence than a lot of other big cities, right? Now, it's not because of quotas racially or gender. It's because of zip code location, right? The people are policing usually the zip code in which they live. And they, whether you want to say it's because they look like the people they're policing or it's because they live right next door to the people they're policing, there's arguments to be made both ways there. But neither way, no amount of police violence upon the public is an acceptable amount. Like, that's where we need to start the argument: is zero shootings is enough shootings.
Yeah, it's too many. One shooting is too many.
Yeah. One's too many. Yeah.
One police shooting is too many.
Yeah.
And and you can sort of nerf it, like you're saying, like sort of massage it. But as far as like ending the police state, you have to have socialism.
Yeah.
And you have to have you had to have a specific kind of socialism, in my opinion, which is not a very totalitarian overarching state, because that's going to have policing forces too. Max Weber says the state has a monopoly on violence.
Yeah.
And so you need something a little bit more decentralized, a little bit more local controlled, and where the working class is actually making their decisions for themselves.
Right. Yeah. Like some kind of, like a whatever confederated municipalism or something, like something of that nature, right?
Some shit like that.
This like web of arced little tiny things, whatever. And generally it's like even the most totalitarian or authoritarian systems are like, their focus is also globally, right? Which is important. And we're not saying that those struggles shouldn't exist, right? Because they should. And being, we're in the American South, which is basically the global South in a lot of areas, right? Like West Alabama looks very similar to a lot of parts of the global South.
I saw something the other day that somebody posted that said Alabama was the American Amazon. So yeah. Alabama has the most biodiversity of any state in the country, and it's not even really that close.
Yeah.
We have like fucking hundreds of different species of crawfish, and I think California has like 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like it's a cool place to live.
It is. Yeah, we have, and if you're watching this, you're looking for something to do that's socially distanced, safe, and not boring, go to any of our state parks that are still open. It'll be outside. It's fun as hell. Usually has good, clean bathrooms, right? It's very cheap to get in for the day. Chihuahua is gorgeous, nice waterfall, great mountain bike park. If you're a biker, if you're not a biker, there's a lot of hiking too. And if you're not ambulatory, I want to say there's a 36-inch wide track also. So super fun place to go.
Alabama State Park System is probably the best state park system in the nation.
I'll put it up against anybody. We're taking all comers.
Yeah, it's really incredible. We use it. I mean, we camp. Me and Robin, we camp, and we definitely have used it. We love Gulf State Park is the one that I really love. I
Yeah.
love Gulf State Park. It is just pristine beaches. Like the campsites are big, they're clean, they're well kept. The camp store is stocked, and it's like right down the street from grocery stores and stuff. You don't have to like, you
Yeah.
know, you don't have to like go, go anywhere. It's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, Gulf State Park rocks too. And this time of year, it's pretty perfect because
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
70 degrees
70
in the middle
degrees.
of the day. I think your overnight lows are between like 30 and 40, which is perfect for the mountain bag. Bring the mountain bag out, no fleece needed. Just, you know, yeah, it's good fucking weather right now. Go camping. Um, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, no. So I think we are economically, and not just ecologically, but economically, this is it's a place with a lot of oppressed workers, right? And not just oppressed in like it sucks, it's hard to vote. It's like no, I mean, we're talking about pure, harsh economic oppressions
Yep.
that people rarely even believe. Um,
People are suffering.
People have fucking like hookworm outbreaks in people's feet from like not having septic systems in their yard, like or having open running sewage in their yards. Like this is not like we're not just joking around about when we say like there are places in America that feel and look third world or like the global south. That is a real thing.
But let's take that a step further.
Yeah.
The people who have hookworm, who are getting hookworm because they don't have septic systems, they don't have sanitation, also live in the geographic area of Alabama that has the most profitable industry in Alabama, which is timber,
Yeah.
which is not owned by people locally. So
Hmm.
people are just extracting wealth from these communities and allowing them to fucking live in the most hard conditions imaginable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. People from like big, there was a what is it I think the term was coined by mostly like racists from the South during the Civil War, but carpetbagger, meaning like profiteers off the war, whatever. They coined the term to mean a completely different thing, like the outside agitator. But carpetbaggers, as in like people coming in and fucking raping this land for resources, fits a lot fucking better, and we see it a lot more. People with a shitload of money that don't live here, coming in, fucking up large swaths of land. Every 7 years, they hit that young growth timber, hit the big jack. They're big every 7 years. They hit this big jackpot, um, flip the land, usually for a profit, and then come back over and do it again. So yeah, shit sucks. Shit fucking sucks.
Yeah, and that's just timber. You got coal, you got agriculture,
Right.
you got, it's like we're natural resource dependent. That's what it's called in the rural sociology literature. It's called natural resource dependent, and we're a natural resource dependent state. And the problem with natural resource dependency is that you have no way out,
Right.
and you're just fucking stuck. And if you go to like the Black Belt, or if you go to Appalachia and you look really hard, and maybe not even that hard, you're going to be like, man, is this the United States of America? Like, is this where am I still here? And in
Right.
a lot of ways, it's not the United States of America. And that's one of the things that, like, I'm doing a panel on mutual aid, or the AFC is doing a panel on mutual aid. I'm trying to put something cool together with some global South people and some American South people together,
Yeah.
doing a mutual aid panel. And I want us to sort of get together and sort of start talking about like how we're similar and how we can work together.
Yeah. And that's super powerful because it is kind of like often in the left we talk about this like tanky anarchist divide, but internationalism and this idea of creating a web of power big enough to defend itself against hegemonic violence, America, right? um
Great, Satan.
yeah, the great Satan. um it requires that web to get big enough, and it requires enough mutual aid that it can be a defense mechanism against this insane amount of violence that's put down upon people, whether they're in, you know, the American South or the global South or both. So,
You know what they talk about in the global South is dignity a lot.
yeah,
They talk about having a dignity in your life and living with dignity, and you know, it has an economic piece to it. Like there is an economic piece, but it's like a deeper, almost like a spiritual like approach to like economics and building and sharing and that sort of stuff. And it's like, you know, it's very much like, you know, is powerful. It's like a powerful word, and the meaning behind it and the people pushing it are talking about like, how do we build dignity in the world for everybody?
right.
And I went to a thing last week on Zoom. It was with Mabrouka Mubarak, who was a Tunisian member of parliament. She helped lead the Tunisian revolution, and she helped write the Tunisian constitution. And she spent some time with us in Birmingham. And I went to her thing about her book where she wrote about us, and the Automotive Free Clinic was actually mentioned in the book, which is pretty fucking cool.
That is awesome.
You know, I have so much admiration for her because she like really expanded my mind into thinking about the stuff that we were doing in Birmingham and the stuff that we're doing here, about like how this is like building dignity. And you know, the name of the panel that we're going to do, I'm going to call it Mutual Aid, Charity, or Dignity.
Yeah.
And I hope I can get the people that I have some commitments. I have 2 headshots. Like I have some commitments, and so I'm starting to put this together for the second week in January, and we'll see. Keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah, big time, big time. No, that should be fucking awesome. And I love the word dignity. And it's interesting you named it that, because my first thought is like, it doesn't feel like that focus is on like, they can't throw you bullshit like handout, right? They can't throw words like that at you when you're asking for dignity, right?
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point.
The right has no way to say you don't deserve dignity. Like,
yeah, yeah.
I'm a human being. I deserve dignity. Everybody deserves fucking dignity. So yeah, I love messaging like that. And it's all like, that's one of the things, like I hate the messaging of defund the police too, for the opposite reason that Obama does, right? I hate it because it's not saying abolish this system that robs people of dignity. Like, so yeah, love that shit. We were gonna get into like why electric cars suck ass, but if everybody could just follow at Do Not Eat 01 on YouTube, his Hyperloop video is excellent on Tesla. He doesn't go too deep into like tire wear being that giantly fucked up inside of a tunnel, but goes into like the dangers of electric cars, guided electric cars, autopilot in general. And that's pretty good. But obviously, lithium is a finite resource.
Yep.
So you're jumping out of a fire into a pan, or a pan into a fire, or something, whatever that is. They're not going to save your life. They're not going to fix climate change. The only thing that's going to do that is abolishing the United States military, overthrowing the great Satan, and establishing a web of power for all working class people. Anything short of that is right-wing bullshit. So again, thanks for being on. Should I end with the same theme song? We didn't take a pee break this time. Look at me with the big old bladder. Should I look up music, or should we? You know what? We'll end with the same thing that we started with. It's called bookending. I like bookending. We're gonna end with the same thing we started with, which is we're gonna let JJ Demon play us out with The Great Satan. And then in parentheses, like a country song, it says, "Eat the rich."
Every single day, bringing a child when I bring me up. Lord, my arms got a box, got a insignia. We gotta abolish ICE, we gotta abolish ICE, abolish it. No need to apologize, the Holocaust abolishes. But no reason to be colonized.
Great Satan. Dr. Zac, thanks again for coming on.
I hope there'll be a punishment. I really want to get
Donate to the Automotive Free Clinic. Link will be in the description. Thanks again, guys.
See you later. Thanks for having me.
Hey, anytime.
Yeah, man.